Hello guys, Jimmy Like Halo here once again, and today we're talking about the best controllers. So for this video, it's mainly just going to be my opinion of how I feel about these, but like more so kind of like comparing the modern ones of the three big consoles. So to get this started, I'm going to mainly talk about the GameCube. Now these two are, this isn't even an official real one, it's the closest I could have online, and this GameStop one is just one I particularly like. I used to have another one back in the day. They seem to last pretty long. Like these GameStop ones are essentially your semi first party. It's basically an official third party producer, whereas this is just like a flat out knockoff one. And very good quality. These last pretty long, whereas these you can see on this one the wire just kind of poking out there. Also, some of the buttons on here are kind of hard to like. They don't press how a normal GameCube one. It's kind of weird. You'd be able to tell immediately it's not real, whereas this one kind of like feels how it should for this kind of controller. So yeah. But overall, it's hard to decide whether this is my favorite controller or the Xbox controller is. I think it's pretty close between the two because I both think they excel at different things. And for just playing GameCube games, obviously GameCube controller is going to be the best, and for playing Wii games as well, it works very well as long as it's not like a motion controlled centered game. But yeah, overall, I really like the way it feels. But the best part, I mean, this is obviously the best controller for Smash Bros. But overall, the way the A button is right in the middle, like the most commonly pressed one, and you can kind of like put your thumb on two buttons at once, is why I think it's so useful, and how it has like for like fighting games like Smash Bros. I feel like it makes it a lot easier to pull off certain things when you can just press multiple things with like one finger. And not only that, but it's just really comfortable to hold in your hand. It's not too small at all, and I have pretty sizable hands too. So it's like the perfect size for me. It feels really good to hold. Even this one, it has like a nice ergonomic feel to it. Another thing I really like is the analog triggers where you push down. Like in Mario Sunshine, you'll be running and then you push all the way down and like click it, you'll lock in place and shoot your water. So it's stuff like that that feels really cool. Also, this was when controllers natively had rumble features in them. This controller in particular, like on the Switch, I don't know if it's like coding that makes this vibration like seem better. It almost makes me think it's like HD rumble is somehow activated in this, but like obviously they're not the Joy Cons. They don't work like that. So I don't know, but maybe the rumble motors in this thing are just really good. But yeah, so that's about all I have to say about these for now. So let's move on to the next set. So next we're talking about the Xbox controllers, and these I have a very long history with ever since the 360. But basically this is just a refinement of the original. Like they've always kept this setup of the two sticks asymmetrical instead of symmetrical like the PlayStation, and these four buttons are always here, the D-pad's always here, that kind of thing. And as it evolved over time, like the Xbox One controller didn't have a little audio jack here, it just had that little middle part there. You had to plug in a little adapter and then plug it in. This is the 1S variant of it where they added that. And it was still micro USB, but also had the original also did not have Bluetooth support. So you can actually sync this to your phone or computer if you would hold this button and search for Bluetooth devices. You can also just plug it in natively to your phone or computer. Very easy and simple to use on Windows PCs and even phones for that matter. It works very well in my experience. That's a big part of the reason why I like these controllers so much, like their compatibility with stuff. And like you'll see on Steam, it's like Xbox controller compatible or like PlayStation controller, but a lot more times this is more compatible. I think more companies just support it because it's more natively supported on Windows. It's easier to use or find, or the biggest part about these controllers is they're always fairly cheaper side. Like to buy, they're not super over expensive. It's like the one controller that if you had a PC, an Xbox, a phone, mobile, whatever, you can pretty much just plug it in and it'll work with most of your devices. And yeah, it works really well for that. So that's about compatibility. But going into how this one feels, just like the GameCube, super comfortable in the hand to hold. I really like these triggers. This is the Series X/S version where Not only did they change the micro USB to Type-C, which is better, but they changed the D-pad, as you can see. This one used to just be like the 4 here, whereas this one it's more clicky and you can like roll it around. So if you play fighting games, that might be better for you. That way it's easier to push like these harder parts. It's like a dish, which I did do on, I believe, the Xbox Elite controller. You could change out the D-pad. But also on the 360 controller, if you turned the D-pad, it would go from like clicking 4 directions to like a dish form, which I thought was so cool. But also in addition, they added a share button. Not that it's a huge deal. So if you hold this, it'll record gameplay, and if you press, it'll just do a screenshot. But on these, you can see how it's smooth here. The only grips part they had on this was like on the controller handle grip side here, whereas this one not only has it there, it's more defined, it feels better, but it also has that on the triggers, on the tops, as you can see right here. Makes it extra grippy. Most people probably like that more. Other people don't. I don't know. Feels like a rough texture. Guess it depends how sweaty your hands are. But yeah, maybe a part of an opinion. You could argue it's better or worse, but probably most part better. But another thing I want to mention about these controllers is on the Xbox One, even the original one controller, these triggers are impulse triggers. So what that means is they actually have rumble motors inside these two. So when you're playing a game, especially if it's natively supported, even like a new game like RoboCop supports them, you'll feel the rumble motor in the actual trigger, which is really cool. I always thought it was like, hey, when Nintendo started talking about HD rumble, I'm like, hey, doesn't that kind of sound like the Xbox controller? Because they had little individual motors on like both sides on the triggers, which feels really nice. Cool little addition. Kind of cool. Not quite as cool is what I'm going to talk about next with the Joy-Con controllers. Oh yeah, one thing I forgot to mention about these ones is unlike the PlayStation controllers, you can pop this back off, and you can either put in double A's or put in a rechargeable one. It's just a nice little thing to be able to choose between the two. It's a shame it doesn't come with a rechargeable one, but like I said, it's also nice to have the option for double A's, because you never know where you are in the world. You might not have access to there, or it's easy just to change out batteries, but that's also a personal opinion. You can also just plug it in without any battery in. It'll just work as a wired controller, which also works really well. Now moving on to the Joy-Cons. This is in the grip format. People say this looks like a dog, like the dog ears. The most problems people have with this one is the, I guess you could call it a D-pad. Well, that's what it's supposed to be. The directional input on the left side here. And the reason it's like this is because when they're individual, because the biggest part about the Joy-Cons is like you can move them between the system and the controller, is when you're holding it sideways like this, if you're sharing as a full controller with 2 people, they have to have 4 buttons to act as these 4 buttons if you were using it this way. So it couldn't really be a D-pad, because then it wouldn't work like a button. It would feel really awkward and weird. So that's why that's like that. Another thing they added on these, they have a share button here. Same thing with the Xbox. You press it, screenshot, hold it, record. The home button here, just like all the other ones. The Xbox buttons, the home button. Got the plus and minus. Those are just menu stuff. Yeah. On this grip, it feels okay enough together like this. Kind of weird how it doesn't come with the charging grip. Should have been all of them, but it's whatever. Just a piece of plastic and with metal. But it feels decently comfortable in the hand. I don't think it's too bad, like people say. The Pro controller is definitely better, obviously, or using a GameCube controller feels better. But, like, if you're just someone who has a Switch and you just slide these bad boys in and you're just playing whatever game, not super competitive or whatever, this gets the job done pretty well, I'd say. I mean, it's pretty comfortable overall. Nothing too much to complain about. Not like as good as the Xbox or PlayStation feel, but still pretty solid overall. That's when we get into the fun part about these things, is you can slide them off the grip and use them individually, kind of like a Wii remote, how you did in the day. And then you can also, when you split them, you can use them individual controllers horizontally, just like the Wii remote as well. You're seeing a lot of similarities here. But the difference with these is they actually have top buttons here that act as shoulder buttons. So they're like triggers almost, or bumpers. So it's a lot easier to individually play with these as opposed to like the Wii Remote, you have to buy a whole new Wii Remote just to do that, whereas with the Switch it natively comes with two, and it's really nice how you can just split these apart. Now, most people say it's not very comfortable to play this way. However, there's a way to make it slightly better by putting on the straps. Now, these straps, they kind of add like more, this round part here makes it not only more comfortable to hold, it's not as sharp, but it's like higher up here. So when you're holding with two hands, it feels a lot better. It's more like feels complete controller. Even when you're holding them separately like this, like let's say you're playing Mario Galaxy, you want to feel more like the Wii game, then holding these individually feels really nice. I actually find myself playing like this sometimes. It's just really nice to be able to just kind of have your hand laying on one, the other hand just elsewhere for whatever reason. It's actually very comfortable to have them individually because there's like no limits to how you can sit with them. Unlike the Wii Remote and Nunchuck, where you had to have a wire between them, or the Classic controller plug like that, there's still a wire, it's not fully wireless, whereas this is. They work really well. I believe they also have Bluetooth in them. I have weird varying results with trying to connect them to stuff using Bluetooth, but overall, Joy-Cons, I like a lot. Especially considering when you take them off of your Switch and then you slot them into the grip, or when you slot them back onto the Switch and it charges them. Actually holding them on the Switch is pretty comfortable overall. When you need to use this stick a lot, it's kind of hard because your hand's going to be like further this way, whereas if you had a different controller, it's like more horizontal, so it's easier for your thumb to reach in this position. But since this doesn't have that because it's portable, it doesn't have that ergonomic grip, so it just feels weird holding it like this. But other than that, Joy-Cons work really well. I like their form factor, and yeah, moving on to the PlayStation controller. Now, this one has my FF7 stickers on it, but this is the only controller I have. I'm a very new PlayStation user. I only ever used the PS5 or ever bought one myself. I've used a PS2 and a 4, but I've never owned one. PS5 is the first one I've owned. I wanted to get a PS4 before, but by the time I was about to get it, the PS5 came out, so here we are. Anyway, the important stuff is this is, I would argue, like I said, I use the PS2 and PS4 controller. Those are not bad at all, but this one, the DualSense, feels so good in the hand. Like there's so much more grip area here, and not only is it like more longer, but it's not as round, and it's more like, with your hands ergonomic, and it feels really nice to hold. But not even just that, like the heft, you can tell it feels premium. Like if you drop this, like, oh frick, that's not good. You can really feel how like premium it is, which is why it's kind of expensive. It gets like up to $75. Like yikes! I know there's a lot of technology in it, but yeah, this is probably the priciest controller, but it kind of makes sense. It feels premium. I think the biggest problem with this controller is the battery life. It does not last long at all. It lasts like maybe 5 hours total, like and that's not even with like a ton of rumble on or anything, and the light on dim and the microphone off. It just does not last very long. Whereas the Xbox controller, the Joy-Cons, they last way longer. Like you don't have to charge it every time you turn it off. Whereas the PlayStation one, I always have to charge this when I'm done playing. Now, that's kind of annoying, but it can be like as long as you plug it in after done, it's no big deal. It charges really fast too, as well. So that's not the largest deal either, since it charges fast. If it took a while to charge and it only lasted so long, then it would suck. But it's okay. So basically, the functions of this controller evolve from the DualShock 4. So the DualShock 4 had the touchpad, and they basically just carried that forward as well as it had a light on the top, the light bar, but they kind of put it in the light here, which I think looks really cool. So when you're playing like a PlayStation 4 game, depending what player you are, the colors will light up here on each side, and it looks really nice. And like let's say you're playing God of War, Resident Evil, it will light up with what color your health is. So it'll be green, yellow, and red, which I think is a cool little effect. Not that you're looking down the controller in the screen, but it's a nice little effect feature. I think that looks pretty cool. Another thing is, even though I was a newer to this controller, it's very easy to go from Xbox to this because like the X button in the game is going to be the same as square. Also, another thing I noticed is the Xbox controller is more curved with these buttons. Like you can see the B buttons like drooping down, whereas this is all like flat here. And these are more mushy buttons. So depending on how you feel, if you like clicky better, the Xbox would be better. If you like mushy, this would be better. Another thing is these are like concave and convex steps. So they go up, but they also concave in. So it's like you get your thumb in there and it's like locked in. It feels really good. Like these sticks feel really good. I'd argue the best thing about this controller is the triggers. They're so squishy and mushy to feel. I love the way they feel. Like the same thing with the Xbox One. I love how squishy it is. I just always find myself when it's off or something, I'm just like pressing them. It just feels so good. And another thing about these triggers, kind of similar to impulse triggers on the Xbox controller, they have haptic feedback. So it's like when you're holding a bow, they always use this example. Like let's say Atreus or in God of War, you pull this down, it's like you feel the resistance, and it's like you have to push, and then it clicks all the way down, kind of similar to the GameCube one. And I think that's a really neat little effect feel on triggers and stuff. But if you're playing a multiplayer game like Call of Duty and you had that on, it'd be probably more annoying than anything, kind of like Rumble. But another thing is like the haptic feedback also is like rumble around the controller. It's like different levels of it. So it's like light, medium, high, and depending on what you're doing in the game, it feels pretty cool. And yeah, the microphone they added on the DualSense. There's a little speaker here, and then the microphone. It doesn't sound the greatest, but hey, it's a microphone. If you didn't have a headset to plug in the bottom here, it gets the job done well enough if you just wanted to talk to your friends. Also, like the other ones, you have a share button, you have the start button, and then yeah, the touchpad is another thing. Is this isn't just like a select button like the Xbox. It's actually like some games, like Spider-Man, for example, for notifications, you have to like swipe on it to pop up stuff, which I think is kind of cool. But also in like the PS5 tech demo, Astrobots is a pretty cool way of showing it. It's like flick up, and also like if you're typing in searching things on the store or whatever, you can actually like well, not only touch to move around stuff, but this also it has gyros. I forgot to mention the Joy-Con have gyros. So what that means is basically motion controls that are um, accurate to where you're moving it. And the gyro controls on this feel pretty good. It lets you use it in a bunch of games actually, but it's a really nifty, nice little feature. Not always used, but when these things are used, they're just neat. Sometimes they're better. Like in the Joy-Cons case, like in Splatoon, they feel really good. And other times it's just kind of whatever. You're like, yeah, I'd rather just use the two sticks. So it's all personal preference. But yeah, that's about all I have talking about this controller and all the controllers in general. If you like this type of video, let me know if you want more. But yeah, let me know in the comments which one is your favorite, or if an older controller is your favorite, some other one. Definitely let me know. And yeah, thanks for watching.